thank you to everybody who took time to join today's session. I feel really humbled by the august audience we have in the month of October, and it's a pleasure to speak to CA community and professionals from the world of ICAI. I am not a chartered accountant. That makes me the odd person in the room, but over the years and since my employer has been PwC, so I have practically lived and worked with CA professionals all the time. So with that kind of experience and camaraderie I share with chartered accountants all over the world, I really feel very excited whenever I get a chance to attend or host or just be in a room with CA professionals. So thank you so much. Let us jump into the topic. I'm sure you thoroughly enjoyed the session on blockchain, because blockchain is in itself a massively interesting topic. I am sure the time doesn't do justice to the topic like this for just 1 hour. It should have been an entire day session if you need to know more about blockchain. But our fellow presenter has done a fantastic job in highlighting the core concepts of blockchain, which is not very different to what we are going to talk about next, because blockchain is going to be or is already a breakthrough technology in preventing risk frauds, because the very use case for blockchain has been how to detect frauds and how to prevent those from happening. Now, frauds have never been an alien topic in our society. Ever since we have uh, taken books in our hands and gone through any stories, be it Snow White or be it even as old as Adam and Eve, there has always been an element of fraud in all such stories. So there could always be a deception which is employed by somebody to get some kind of financial or personal gain from that deception. Cut to 21st century, it has only become much more uh, emphasized and much more important, because we are now in the midst of a digital revolution. If not already, we are at a time where everything is moving at a pace which we cannot catch up with. So every moment technology is evolving. We have blockchain, we have RPA, robotic process automation, we have machine learning, we have AI, we have a whole lot of other digital hype technologies waiting just to bombard us with so much of data we have with us. Again, we don't have too much time with us, so we would practically be just touching like 0.001% today, or even less, because a topic like fraud, when we talk about it in a digital context, it assumes significant proportion. So I hope I'm audible and visible to everybody who is present today, and I would like to take the chance to thank you once again. And with your permission, we would like to start. So what is a digital world, and why are we talking so much about fraud risks? So the statement which we go about when we talk about cyber or digital world is that every business, every individual who is running a business is going to hit by some or the other kind of a cyber attack. And the question is not about if. It's no longer if I'm going to be attacked. The question is when. So the risks which we are exposed to in today's world are far too great. And that is why we have to always be cognizant of the risks which we face. And the risks, as you know from any risk management program, could be massive. They could be business risks, they could be strategic risks, they could be operational risks. Now, when we talk about fraud risks, we generally try to put it in the context of financial risk, in the way that how frauds can lead to some kind of a monetary loss to an organization or an individual. We no longer separate an individual from the organization anymore, because now the individual is the organization and the organization is not bigger than the individual. So even if somebody faces a 5,000 rupees fraud on Paytm, that is still an e-fraud. It is no longer a petty theft. It is still considered as an e-fraud. And whether PNB faces thousands of crores of fraud, that is also an e-fraud. So all of these would be part of e-frauds whenever digital technology is leveraged to commit such frauds. I'm sure you, be it Kerala, be it whichever part of the world you are joining us from today, you would hear daily stories about how there are multiple frauds which take place every day. It could be on our mobile wallets, it could be on our UPI platforms, it could be on bank accounts, our other social media profiles. But the quantum of fraud which could happen on a daily basis has only become bigger. And that is where we talk about a very important concept in security or in risk management, is that we should always reduce the surface of the attack. Say today the attack surface is this big, then the hacker or the attacker or the fraudster, they are all different names of the same profile of a person. That person can exploit the entire surface area of the attack. So as individuals or as business heads or somebody who is running an organization for themselves or for their clients, we should always minimize the surface area of attack so that we can control it better. Because if we have a larger surface area, we would have difficulty in managing the defense of that area. However, if the area of attack is smaller, it is always much easier to manage and protect. So the agenda for today's session is very simple. Due to lack of time, we would have only two larger sections. One is the introduction of what cyber risks mean in today's context in the digital world. And the second, we are going to talk about some of the cyber attacks and defense as we know about them from a fraud perspective. So I hope that shouldn't be a problem. Now let's understand what is fraud risks in today's context. Why are we talking about frauds and how they are gaining more and more prominence in today's world? Now, if you look at the incidents of fraud, even in the year 2020, you would see that across industries, there have been a lot of disruptive fraud events. This is a report by PwC 2020 Global Economic Crime and Fraud Survey. It's a public report. You can just Google it and download it from the internet. This report, as you can see, shows that across any sector, there are a significant proportion of events which are fraudulent or which are attributed to some kind of fraud. If we were to categorize them and see the percentage, you would see that almost 1/6 of them are cybercrime. So uh, there are events which are of criminal nature. Those have been those disruptive events. And if we look at the other half, which is the customer fraud or the consumer fraud, they have also been almost in the range of 15 to 20% across any of these sectors, be it consumer market or financial services or retail or industrial. So the point here is that almost all sectors, they have a massive exposure to fraud. And the reason being is that all of them are largely digital now, and they face a much higher proportion of attacks worldwide. So that's why we have to be aware that what is the nature of the industry and how being digital is also increasing the risk of these industries or these sectors getting exposed to various types of frauds. Now, one very common form of fraud which happens is, or things which lead to a fraud are data breaches. Now, what is a data breach? A data breach is an incident, a cyber incident, where customer records, it could be bank account, it could be username passwords, it could be credit card records, any number of things which are critical or which are considered as sensitive, they get leaked from an organization. So if we look at the number of data breaches which have become bigger, you would see that across the world, a lot of these countries, they have all suffered massive data breaches. And this is from a report by IBM in 2019, where you would see that the cost of data breach reports is Middle East, because it is more of a group of countries, the average number of records have been very high. And India, because of our sheer size and population, and also being the IT capital of the world, we also have a huge share of the average number of records per data breach. So this report is again available online, and you can only imagine how much countries are suffering due to cyber attacks or cyber crimes. And these data, you might think that they are only of value to the hacker in terms of username, password. It is not. Anything which has a financial aspect to it, like account numbers, credit card numbers, KYC records like your PAN number, Aadhaar ID, or any other KYC ID, all of these are brought and sold in the market. Now, these markets could be closed markets, like within a closed group of companies or individuals, or this could be something which we know as the dark web or the dark net, where these records are sold for as low as 10 cents or $1 per record. So this is just to set the context about how data size is getting bigger and bigger, and so are the risks. Now, if we look at how the digital world has shaped, you would see that we are getting closer to 8 billion people on the planet, and so are the numbers getting closer when we have mobile or internet users. And that is one of the foremost drivers of e-frauds, because a lot of these things have moved online. All customer transactions, any kind of e-commerce, any kind of uh, uh, government services or civic services, all of these have started becoming online. And because of the sheer volume of these numbers, it is a very rewarding opportunity for hackers and fraudsters to work in the digital space. So these numbers, as you can see, are from different sources. If you look at how the things are in India or how they are in our country, again, we are 1/6 of the world's population, and we are even higher when it comes to mobile penetration, or we are getting there when it comes to internet users, because we are a young country. We have probably the highest percentage of youth in the world, and that is where we also have massive number of mobile subscriptions, and so are the internet users. So if you could make some assumptions from the popularity of TikTok or YouTube or Facebook, Snapchat, some of these very popular platforms, you would know that how quickly our generation XYZ, how they have moved to the internet world. So this is again just to give you a context that we are probably the biggest target when it comes to stealing data or becoming a victim of frauds, because we have such numbers from the global numbers put together. So now, with those numbers in mind, and with that much of focus on our country and our population, both individual and organizational, and even if you look at some of the recent stories where hackers from China or some other country, they were specifically focusing on startups or very high profile companies in India, you would know that the scale of fraud has now moved beyond just mobile wallets or just getting money for somebody's bank account. Now there could be frauds which could be done at the organizational levels, or there could be other forms of cyber attacks which could happen to large companies or large multinationals. However, if we have to just quickly go through some of the popular types of fraud, you would know that UPI has become the most favorite hunting ground for fraudsters, because UPI being linked to a bank account are most vulnerable to any kind of transactions if not done securely. We are not saying that UPI is vulnerable in itself. However, if you do not exercise caution and if you do not understand the risks which are associated with UPI transactions, you could be a victim of fraud. And I'm sure you would know at least one person in your community or your friend circle or within your family who has been a victim of a UPI or a wallet fraud. Why? Because combining social engineering, combining phishing scams where somebody makes a phone call to you or sends some email or a message, and they convince you to share the PIN number or to enter the PIN on your phone and perform the transaction. So that leads to the request money fraud, where people can convince you to put your key or put your PIN number, and as a result, money gets transferred from your bank account to the fraudster's account. As recent as last week, I know somebody from a friend of mine whose father lost 5 lakhs due to this UPI fraud. So it's happening very, very frequently, and it's happening almost to everybody all over the country. The other one is QR code fraud, where somebody would ask you to scan a QR code and get you to pay money to their account instead of the rightful account. So these are again a variation of the UPI fraud. Then a very popular modus operandi, which is through remote access apps, where somebody would get control of your computer or your laptop or your mobile phone by asking you to install remote sharing apps like TeamViewer or AnyDesk or ScreenShare. Now, none of these apps are malicious, but they could be exploited to commit frauds. Then there could be social media impersonation fraud, where the fraudsters can create fake social media profiles. And it is not difficult to do that. I would show you some simple examples as to how they can be created just like that. There could be SIM swap frauds, where somebody can get a SIM issued in your name and do a swapping of the SIMs. So the SIM or the number you have could go to some other person, and the fraud can happen. I see some questions are coming online. So due to lack of time, we can't take them while the course of discussion. However, we will reserve some time towards the end of the presentation so that we are able to answer maximum questions. But keep them coming on the Q&A window so that we know you have something to ask. On the same lines, if we have to talk about the digital like the role technology has now played in frauds, is when you see something like a deep fake. Now, what is a deep fake? A deep fake is a technology which can manipulate photographs and videos in a way that it might look absolutely original. So you can put somebody's face on somebody else's body using digital image processing techniques. You could put somebody's face on somebody else and make that person appear in some other video. So there are massive implications of deepfake, and a Google search would reveal that how easy it is to do that and how serious they can get. So we just have a blog online where we shared that even social media challenges like the sari challenge or pillow challenge or any other kind of challenge where you are required to post your photographs, they can be exploited and they can be used in fraudulent activities, in creating fake documents, fake ID cards, fake social media profiles. And the amount or the scale to which your profile can be misused is unimaginable, because you might think that your photograph does not hold that much value, but give it to a fraudster and he or she would let you know how much value it is. We would see how easily it can be done as well. Now, let us take a look at some of the tools which are around us, which will give you a good example or a good illustration as to how frauds can happen around us. We would start with some of the mailing tools which are around us. One very popular tool is called Hunter. Now, if you look at Hunter, what it does is, let it come up. So Hunter is a marketing tool where you can find people by their email IDs. Okay, so all you need to do is give the domain name of the company and it will tell you the email IDs of individual who are part of that company. So for the sake of demonstration, if I have to just talk about the institute's email IDs, you would see that it would give you a massive list of all people who have email IDs at icai.org. And the reason why it is able to do that is because it can find out what is the pattern of these email IDs. So you can see that the pattern it says is first name dot last name at ici.org, or it is first name last name at ici.org. So with this pattern, fraudsters can easily find out email IDs of people working in an organization, and they can start sending social engineering emails. They can send them targeted emails and make them do actions which can lead to a fraud. Okay. Or they can find two people who are working in the same organization, and they can send email to the other person claiming to be this person and commit a fraud. So these type of frauds are generally known as phishing scams, and they are part of a larger type of an attack category which we know as social engineering. All right. So you see that just by using a public service or a web URL online, anybody can find email IDs of anybody at any organization. To do that, you can also utilize the help of LinkedIn, because LinkedIn gives you a list of everybody who works at a particular company. And combining that information with this information, you can find out a lot of email IDs of people working at any organization. So these are tools which can lead to frauds. Now, there could be cases where you might want to verify whether a particular email ID exists or not, because you would be suspicious of that email. So to do that, what you can do is you can use a link called verify email address. And what you can do is you can provide an email ID over there to check whether that email ID exists or not. So let me give you my own email ID for testing purposes. And here you would see that it shows that this email ID is okay, which means that this email ID exists. Because you might be suspicious of an email ID and you might want to know whether that email ID is actually valid or genuine. So you can run it on this utility and you can try to find out whether it exists or not. Now, the third tool which we have is called MX Toolbox, and it is again a supremely powerful utility where you can check whether an email ID is healthy or not. Now, what it means by healthy is that a lot many times you would find that your email ID is getting categorized as spam, or it is getting blacklisted. Now, to prevent that from happening, you have to be sure that your email domain is healthy and that there are no errors attached to that email domain. So you would see that this site, MX Toolbox, gives you a complete health report, and it shows that whether your email is blacklisted or not. And as you can see that my domains, which is cyberyug.com, my company's domain ID is not blacklisted. Because if it is blacklisted, then there is a good chance that any email which I send would land into the spam mailbox of the recipient. Okay, so just by having an email ID is not enough. We would also have to ensure the health of the email domain. And you can do that by using this service called MX Toolbox. All right. So that is another utility which could help you in detecting problems with your mailbox. A similar utility which Google provides is called G Suite Mailbox, where you can use the G Suite toolbox to find out issues with your mailbox. Okay. Now, the fifth one which we have is very interesting. And if you look at this, it is called fake emailer. What this does is that it gives fraudsters a very easy way to create fake emails. Now, when you look at e-frauds, sometimes you would see that there are emails coming from accounts of somebody who might not be that person. Okay. For example, I might claim to be the PMO office. Okay. And I might claim that this email has come from pmo@gov.in. Okay. Now, I might send this email to myself, or let me use another. I might send this email to myself and say that you have received Shri award. Okay. And I might create a complete HTML email with all the awards detail and everything. And I might uh, create a complete, what should I say, a complete project around deceiving through just this email. Now, if I send this email would actually go to this ID. As you can see that it says email has been sent successfully. And if I could show you, let me try to show whether that email has actually come or not. Let me quickly check my Yahoo account. And you would see that this kind of service, they are able to send fake emails claiming to be from one account to another account. Now, as you can see, it has not arrived here yet because I have already marked it as spam in my earlier interactions, but let me check whether it is there on the spam mailbox or not. And as you can see that it has come in the spam mailbox. Now, for the sake of demo, if we were to consider this email, you can see that this email claims that it has come from pmo@gov.in. Okay. And it has everything which I had typed in that email screen. So had not Yahoo marked it as spam, this email would have actually come to my mailbox, and I might consider it to be a genuine email. And I might start thinking that it has come from the PMO's office and I have received an award or something. So there are serious issues with email service in today's world because they can't understand what is a genuine email and what is a fake email. And unless you do more research about this email by going into the email's message header, you can't say whether it is a genuine email or a fake email. And why is that? Because you would have to look at some details into the message body, which says that SPF has failed. So this is how email services find out whether it is a true one or a fake one. All right. So that is how you would have to figure out whether it is true or fake. And that is how most social engineering scams or frauds which are done over email, they are successful because they can manipulate such emails. And the way to do that is by using services like this, which are entirely free. If you have seen, I just typed the domain and I have been able to access it, and I have sent a fake email just like that. So beware that whenever you receive emails, do not consider them to be genuine without checking more details about that email. And that could be even looking into the body of that email by looking at the raw message or other attributes. All right, I wish I could show you more details about email, but due to lack of time, we just have to show you the tools, and you can do your own research later on and come up. Of course, we would share our email ID. If you have further doubts, we can take it later on. And similarly, there is another feature by Gmail where you can create multiple email IDs linked with a single mailbox. So what happens is, say you have an email ID which is abc@gmail.com. Okay, you can create another email ID which is abc+1@gmail.com, and it will still be part of that same mailbox. So ABC, any emails which are sent at abc+1@gmail.com actually goes to abc@gmail.com. So this is another hack, which we call it, which is there in Google, through in Gmail particularly, through which you can create multiple accounts by, hang on one second. Yeah. So you can create multiple mailbox by just creating a new ID which says plus and then anything which you write after that. So this is how you can create multiple email IDs. So whenever if you ever receive emails which has a plus and then some other characters, beware that it is not a separate email, it is the same email as this. The way it is done and the way it is created, you can find out from this blog which we have. Let me just share the blog with you. It is hosted on the site called internetofsecurity.org. And if you go to that blog section, you would see that it has details about how it is done. Okay, how multiple aliases, as we call it, how multiple aliases can be created for just one Gmail ID. Okay, so you can just log in, visit internetofsecurity.org, and you can visit that blog. Now, these were some examples of tools where you could use, or where you should be aware of how emails can be manipulated or they can be used in committing frauds. Now, if we have to look at another such category of tools which are available online, there are tools like Google Doc, okay, where you can use Google to manipulate your search results, and it can be used to commit frauds. So it is called as Google Hacking Database. And just by manipulating your Google search, you can find out a lot of information online, and it can lead to fraudulent activities. Now, you may ask that, are we understanding how to prevent frauds, or are we understanding how to commit frauds? Now, the double-edged sword which we carry with us when we perform cyber related work is we always have to understand how something is done in order to protect ourselves from that activity. So it is about knowing how fraudsters work to be able to protect ourselves from fraud. As we popularly say that we have to think like a criminal to protect ourselves from crime. All right. So that is where we are focusing on that. Beware that all these techniques are very simple and anybody can use it. Even a high school student nowadays are much more expert than you and me in using these tools. Now, the other one which is very serious when it comes to internet frauds are tools like Shodan. And what is Shodan? Shodan is a utility like Google where you can find any internet connected devices. It is said to be the search engine of Internet of Things. So if I have to find devices which are connected online, such as routers, Wi-Fi routers, I can just do a search on Shodan and I can find out routers which are connected, and with all IP addresses and everything. So it is very easy for hackers to find out IP addresses of devices which are connected online. And there are tools like Shodan and router passwords which can help them or the hackers in finding out these IPs and in committing such frauds. Now, if you are knowledgeable of some sites where you think there could be a malware, then before visiting the site, you can do something which is called as Google malware scan. And what is this scan? This scan is about finding out whether a particular site contains malware or not. So if I have to check my own company's domain, whether it is a safe site or not, I can just type it here, and I can use Google's intelligence to find out whether my site has any kind of malware or unsafe content. However, this doesn't mean that it is the last word. Of course, Google has its own limitation, and there could be ways in which malware can bypass Google's scan. So this is not the ultimate in telling you whether a site has unsafe content or not, but this can be a good starting point for you to find out whether a particular site has malware or not. So it is called as a Google malware scan, and it is available on Google's website through Transparency Report. The other link which we have over here is called unshortener. Why we are using an unshortener? Again, you would see many times getting links which are not the full URLs. it is something which we call as the shortened URL. Mostly it comes on SMS or on WhatsApp or Facebook, social media accounts. Now, if you click that URL, and if that URL is of a malicious website, then chances are that your computer can get compromised. So it is always important that you unshorten that URL. You can use this service to unshorten the URL and find the actual URL behind it. Now, another utility which we have discussed here is called reverse image search. Just like you search Google by keywords, you can search Google with images to find out more information about that image. So it is called as Google reverse image search. And here you can upload an image and you can find out more information about that image. Why it is required? Now go back to the topic which we talked about, fake images. So sometimes you might think an image is fake. You can use Google reverse image search to find out whether it is a real image or a fake image. Okay. Talking about fake images, there is a very popular service or a very popular website which says, this person does not exist. What is this website? This website is an AI-driven website which gives you photograph of a person who does not exist. Okay, this person is not a real person. Although he or she might look like a person who could be amongst us, but this person actually does not exist. This image has been created using AI, artificial intelligence. Every time you refresh this website, you would get new images of people who do not exist. This person does not exist. It is an AI created image. We can do this all day. I can keep refreshing, and every new image you get is not a real person's image. I know you might feel, how is that possible? Well, that's the power of AI. It can scan billions of images and it can combine those images to create an image which is fake. All right. So this is how fake images can be extremely popular, or how they can happen. While we are on the topic of fake images, fake videos, or fake URLs, fake emails, let us talk about a service which is hugely popular amongst fraudsters or in the field of cybersecurity as well, which is called as Tor. Now, what Tor does is that it hides the IP of the individual. So say if I want to visit a bank like hdfcbank.com, and if I type that URL in Tor, till the time that page comes up, okay, you would see that there is a lot of interesting things that happen. And what is that? You would see that this connection to HDFC Bank has not come from India. It has come through a series of hops. What kind of hops? The connection from my browser has first been to Germany, then to Italy, then to Slovakia. And from Slovakia, it has connected to hdfcbank.com. So it is not a direct connection from my browser to HDFC. And this is a very important knowledge in fraud or in the field of cybercrime, is because sometimes the IPs can be manipulated. How? Say now if I visit any site using my Safari browser, I can do something like, what is my IP? And it will tell you my IP address, which is my actual IP address right now. As you can see, it is saying my IP address is this, and it has even said my location is Kolkata, which is true. So I am from Kolkata. Now, if I have to find out more details about this, I can go to a website called IP Info, and I can put that IP address and get more information about that IP. Okay, so you can see that when a fraudster uses a normal browser like Safari or Chrome or Firefox, the IP address of that person can get revealed. However, if that person uses a browser like Tor, then chances are that the IP address would never be known. Because if I connect to what is my IP address using Tor, it would give me an IP address which is of Germany. Can you see what is the IP address it is showing? It is showing the IP address of Germany because my connection is from my computer to Germany. And it will keep changing every time I refresh. Now let me take that IP and put it in the IP address tracker, and you can see that it is from Europe, and actually it is from Switzerland. So there are so many tools which are so easily available to fraudsters that in today's digital world, the risk which we have is humongous. And I just wanted to show you some of the tools which are freely available and which can lead hackers to manipulate all of these information. So as you can see that the IP address has been manipulated, the location has been manipulated. Using tools like this, the email can be manipulated. So there are n number of things which can happen, and through which the hackers can create multiple ways of committing fraud. So if we have to quickly look at how these frauds happen because they compromise the CIA principle, which you might be aware of, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If one or more of these principles are compromised, frauds can happen. So even if we talk about a mobile wallet fraud or a mobile UPI fraud, you know that it is the confidentiality which has been compromised, the confidentiality of the OTP or the confidentiality of the bank account. So always try to uphold these three principles in every system which is of value to you. Okay, it could be your internal systems, it could be your external systems, because if these are compromised, then frauds can happen. The same goes for authentication, where we talk about something called a multi-factor authentication. Because without multi-factor, somebody can hack into your account by using multiple combinations of username and password. So that is why multi-factor authentication is a very potent control to prevent frauds. Frauds where your account, the username password has been compromised. And if we have to quickly discuss some of the attack forms, you know that phishing attacks can easily happen. The demo which I have shown you, where anybody can send you a malware through email or a fake email. Attacks can happen by creating fake websites. People can send you links of websites which are not the actual website, and the email can be sent by a service which we just seen. Then people can create a copy of the original website. It happens with banks a lot, where people can create a duplicate of that website and they can ask the customers to visit the duplicate website and give their internet banking, and as a result they become a victim of fraud. Then there could be attacks which are hacker in the middle, where somebody can intercept your connection and get all the information about you or your bank accounts. So these are some of the techniques which we are talking about. Another way through which frauds are also committed are through botnets. And what botnets do is they attack a particular service. They would flood a particular server with too many connections, and as a result the target gets compromised. And then there could be flaws in the software which can be exploited, which we normally call as zero-day vulnerabilities. So by exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities, fraudsters can find out what is the weakness in your system and they can exploit that weakness. It happened a lot with Zoom, where a lot of people were able to attend virtual meetings without paying, or by just knowing the username, or just by knowing the username and password. So, and then there were other flaws which were on Zoom earlier. So these are examples of a lot of ways in which frauds can happen. Similarly, there are these kind of DNS spoofing frauds or IP address spoofing frauds, email spoofing you already saw. So these are very easy techniques. Then there could be insiders who can facilitate fraud, as we know from the PNB example or many other stories which we hear. So insiders can be a part of the fraud. They can be a complicit in the crime. And then when we talk about phishing, these are the kind of phishing emails which you might get, which might look genuine, but these are actually dangerous. Okay. And these are generally known as spear phishing attacks, because somebody is targeting you with a particular uh, kind of information. So you would see messages coming from Apple saying that your Apple ID has been locked out. But if you look at the detail, you would see that it has not come from Apple. It has come from a fake email ID. But if you just focus on the alias, then you might think it is a genuine email. Then how to check such phishing mails? Always check the sender and message. Always look at the message details. So these are some things you have to be careful about when we talk about phishing. And there is no easy way. I can't tell you a solution which will tell you that your email is phishing. You would have to put effort to find out whether an email is phishing or not, and then mark such email as spam, so that in future you don't get such emails. All right, so we had some of these techniques on this phishing and all. uh, I don't think due to time we would be able to cover everything. This is one slide I wanted to show you, is that how the digital world is a fraction of what we know, because there is a huge world which is underneath, which we call as the deep web or the dark web, and the web which we use is only the 4%. And if you look at threats and risks, this is one slide which I found very helpful, of course, courtesy downloaded from internet, where you would see that there are so many things which could happen or which could go wrong in the world of internet, and that is why the chances of risks and frauds are so high. All right, so I know that was a very rushed presentation, but we had to finish it within 3:30 so that we can jump into the Q&A. So let me now just look at the Q&A, and let me try to answer your questions as much as possible. So let me go in the reverse order. Somebody asked, INA doesn't figure in data breach. So I don't know if you mean Indonesia, but see, that was a report by a particular agency like IBM. Every country features in some or the other form of data breach. We can talk about as many reports. Then which web browser is safe? Chrome, Edge, Firefox? Again, it's my personal opinion. It's not a biased thought I want to put on companies, but I feel Firefox is more safer because it is part of an open source foundation, which is Mozilla. Other than that, Edge and Chrome belongs to organizations which are Google and Microsoft. So they might have their own agenda. So if you ask me, I trust Firefox more than Edge or Chrome. What is the favorite time for hackers, night or morning? See, night and morning are relative concepts. Right now we are in the afternoon, but it is night in USA. So they are absolutely irrelevant for hackers. Wherever there is value, they would spend time. When so many safety measures are there, how hacking occurs? See, the safety measures are always an afterthought. Any safety measures which have come in the world, it has only come after it has been compromised. And COVID is a good example. Because we are suffering from this pandemic called COVID, we are struggling to find a cure for it or a vaccine for it. The same applies to the cyber world. We face numerous challenges, and we are trying to find a vaccine for all of them one by one. Cryptography is only secure if we do not compromise the principles of cryptography. And what are those principles? If the keys which are at the root of cryptography, if the keys become compromised, then cryptography is useless. Now, if I share my password with somebody, then the whole purpose of authentication is useless. So when it comes to security, it's a shared responsibility. Technology would share that responsibility with the user. We can't put the burden on technology 100%. We have to share that burden with technology. Can you share your slides? I would love to share the slides. I can share it with the branch. know it is a very sad thing that even when we are in 2020, there are sites which don't have certificates. But please try to visit sites which says they are secure, or there is that padlock which we see. Otherwise, if you are not required to visit that, avoid such sites. You were not directly clicking, you were right click link. Any danger? No, there is no danger in that. It is just that it's a matter of habit. So there is no danger in that. There are bot says which Shah Rukh Khan has 60%. We won't name any individual, but a lot of following which we see in the social media, they are actually fake. If you remember a recent news story about, I think, a rapper said that they have purchased likes. So influencers, celebrities, they can purchase likes on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. They can purchase like 50 paisa for every like, and you can get as many likes as you want. So yeah, you are right. There are verified reports that yes, these likes can be purchased. If government knows about darknet, why can't they block it? Governments won't block it, and they would never block it, because it is a different conversation. Politics run on fear, and fear runs because there are crimes and criminals which can fuel that fear. So this is not the forum to discuss that, but I'm sure you understand that how governments, they come into power because they exploit the fear, and fear comes because there are darknet and dark web and underworld and so many other agencies. So it is a good conversation over tea later on. We can learn about cybersecurity. I think there are multiple free resources now available. There is a resource called Cybrary, Cybrary, which has got free courses. And I think Coursera, Udemy, Unacademy, uh, YouTube, they all have various courses which are free nowadays. So you can just look it up, and you can find some of these. And even the institute has a lot of such courses. So not promoting ICI, but feel free to check out the institute's website. Marking spam or unsubscribing not working. See, apart from marking spam, what you can also do is block sender. In Gmail and Yahoo, there is a feature called block sender where you can go and block the sender. So you can do that. Is it safe to keep passwords in third-party applications? Again, be cautious. If you are using something like Dashlane, LastPass, Zoho Vault, One Password, which are popular software, yes, you can do that. But do not keep passwords in free utilities which are not that well known. So try to do a little bit of research with these third-party applications. Is our income tax details, GST, Aadhaar card safe? I can't answer that without getting biased, so I would leave that for some other day. Now, if you're talking about your own personal safety of these records, please do not share it with random people. Please do not attach your Aadhaar ID or your driver's license on random websites. Because once you share it with them, it will become freely available. You see intelligence below using simple mobile. We also do that. We always have 3 different sets of mobiles. One is this smartphone, the other is the bar phone, and the third is a virtual phone which we use depending on the purpose. So there are various reasons why we do what we do, but yeah, that is why it is. Let me also look at some of the, we tried to cover the Q&A as much as possible. Let me look at some of the comments in the chat window. It's mostly about welcoming and enjoying the session.